Om Stapakaya cha Dharmasya Sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padavadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhormuhu Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukasvarupaya Swamini Tapahari. Well, very dear Brahma Pranaji and the devotees of this Dallas Center. As Brahma Pranaji said, Dallas was the first center to invite me, and largely because of our efforts, I started coming to America, because I've been here several times. But the first breakthrough, the first trip was largely her initiative. He took a lot of efforts to gather the invitations. And because now in India, we can travel very freely, but if you have to go to abroad, just go to the central board for their approval and all that. So, and there's the first place I came, and the impression is so deep even now, because the place itself is very nice, so thinly populated, coming from a place like India, Calcutta, Delhi. So Dallas, you're amazed how can there be such a big place with so few people. And added to that, this center is a very unique and a very beautiful, calm, spiritual ambience. So I always have been so fond of coming here. I've been here 4 or 5 times at least, definitely. So today we are supposed to talk about bringing spirituality into work. There is a character in Greek mythology, a king, Sisyphus. He was so cruel and so cunning. He would trick all gods and cheat them in various ways. It seems once he tied up the god of death himself. So finally, somehow the gods defeated him, and as punishment, they took him to the foothills, the foot of a very fairly high area. Then, he was given a highly polished stone and a rod. He said that you have to roll this stone up the hillock, and you must take it to the top. And once you do it, you are free. So he would start very seriously, diligently. He will roll it up and up and up. Just before it reaches the top, it will come rolling down. And again, he would start. It seems he is still trying to roll it up. So I think most of us work like that, seem to be caught in an unending circle of work day after day, day after day. It only seems to grow even more complicated with all the advancement, all the facilities, conveniences, gadgets, So we always, after years of hard work, it only seems to be a terrible, monotonous involvement, there's boredom, monotony. So quite often, what people seek in general, peace, harmony, satisfaction, joy, that always seems to elude people, in spite of all the hard work again and again. So to escape from work, people seek various kinds of entertainment, digressions, diversions, going on holiday, but they come back more stressed, because even during holidays, they're constantly, nowadays, over phone, over internet, or something. So is it really possible to bring some other element into work itself? So I would say that bringing spirituality to work should not be like, like some chocolate top up over some cake or something like that. It cannot be in a piecemeal way. You cannot just integrate spiritually into work like that. At least that's how I feel about it. Of course, we will examine it in a little greater detail as we proceed. So, there is a tremendous amount of existential need for work. Particularly these days, even in monasteries, I think probably you would all see, one is busy from morning to night, extremely heavily engaged in activities. So work seems to be an integral part of every human being. So under the conditions, there is a social need, an existential need, there are so many needs connected with work. So all of us have to work. But can there be another element into work? This would be, largely determined by our attitude towards work itself or the goal. What exactly we want to achieve through work? What is our real goal? If it is only for the sake of existential needs, we will end up that way only, constantly going through the highs and lows of work, some success, some failure, something happens, something snaps, something cracks, something happening here, there. Finally, we end up nowhere. People after years of work, finally they feel a kind of vacuum. What did I do all my life? So, it's becoming much more difficult with burnouts for people in their 40s and so on because of the high intensity with which they work. But on the other hand, if you understand the very nature of life, it's very important. Probably in all our talks, this is one aspect which will be definitely touching at least briefly, that there is a different element, different aspect to life itself. Do we recognize it? Are we aware of it? Then only all these questions would come. Then only all this can be discussed. See, a vast majority of mankind is busy with the existential aspect of life only. What we receive through the senses, what we experience through the senses. With all its problems, difficulties, it cannot even be described. With that, still, somehow they seem to go through the motions and they retire, then finally they die, having completely, led a life of dissatisfaction or disharmony or lack of peace, etc., etc. So, but then somehow, if you recognize there is a deeper dimension to life, and essentially the purpose of life itself is to live differently. If it strikes us, and if you're really deeply possessed by that idea, then it is possible to discuss all that and also find out whether the ways of bringing all this into our place of work, whether all this can be done. Because essentially, work relates to our daily needs, our necessities at the earthly level, at the level of senses. But spirituality essentially relates to a transcendental level. By spirituality, it's not just ethical and moral life, it's beyond that. There are many people, a large number of people working in this world, they don't steal, they don't do anything by misappropriation or embezzlement or stealing or taking somebody's wealth, doing something immoral. A large number of people don't do all that. But still, that doesn't take them anywhere. Still, they also struggle. They also feel this boredom, monotony. But if you understand, there is a higher dimension to life, a transcendental dimension, which is called spirituality, where we can go beyond all that, then we can discuss this idea. But long ago, the idea of, is it possible to combine these two? That is the main question. Then we can say, yes, we have to work, we do all that, and along with that, we combine this aspect of life or existence, which is beyond senses, which belongs to a transcendental realm, beyond this earthly level, then it is possible. So in that connection, this combination long ago, the Hindu mind has thought of all that. All these have been thought of, discussed, and so on. They said there are two paths, two ways of living. One they call as Pravritti Marga, and the other is called as Nivritti Marga. What is this Pravritti Marga? It's a path of participation, path of involvement, path of engagement. And Nivritti Marga is total withdrawal. That which is definitely for a different purpose, and where there is very little or practically no participation that way. Essentially, it concentrates on complete withdrawal and move away from everything. But according to the Hindu mind, the Hindu idea, all beings, all human beings, ultimately, they should all reach what is called mukti or total freedom. In that, there is no difference of opinion, or there is no variation. Irrespective of the path that we pursue, we select to go through or walk through. One is the Pravritti Marga, the path of participation, and the one is called Nivritti Marga, the path of total withdrawal or contemplation or inwardness or whatever you may call it. So essentially, the Hindu mind speaks of 4 purusharthas or 4 values worth pursuing in life. What are they? They call them as dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is the basic guiding principle, that which holds you, that which upholds you, that which protects you, that which shows you the way. That is called dharma. And that is the completely, everything has to go through this filter of dharma. Based on dharma, you can earn money, you can acquire wealth, it's called artha. And then once you have wealth, what you need? To enjoy kama. Again, going through the filter of dharma. But ultimately, one has to turn or go towards mukti. So, in this Pravritti Marga, you participate. You, in a rightful way, you earn, you enjoy, but then ultimately, you have to give up all this and go to the path of ultimate mukti or liberation. Whereas Nivritti Marga is like, from the starting point of dharma, directly going to the mukti, bypassing the intermediary steps. So, these two paths are well known. So, what happens normally for the majority of people, majority of mankind, Pravritti Marga is the path. So all those who are involved in various ways, in various pursuits in this world, all the people normally, they are taking the path of pravritti or participation. So in this also, unless you recognize there is an ultimate goal, there is an ultimate objective to be achieved, namely nirvana or freedom or total mukti, then all these things do not come into play or do not come into consideration at all. So if people so the idea of work or participation comes largely in this pravritti marga or the path of participation. Not obviously it is suited to 99.99% of the mankind. So the nivritti marga is from the beginning it is withdrawal. So it's always going away from work or non-participation. That is the crux or that's the main element of this nivritti marga. So what happens in this pravritti marga, where there is a lot of participation, where there is work, how do you bring in this element of spirituality into it? Because you see, in the ancient times, both the margas were really advocated. Depending upon your fitness, you can go for any one of them. But then later on, the great Shankaracharya came And with this advent, he really developed a wonderful philosophy called the Advaita Vedanta. And through that, he said that the ultimate truth is there is oneness or consciousness. And the whole goal, the only goal of life is to realize this oneness and go beyond all this differentiation, all this manifestation, all that he put under a word called Maya or illusion or delusion or ignorance. So what he said was, because he also said that one has to do for some time the karmas which are prescribed according to the Shastras, because everyone knows, he also clearly acknowledged that no one can be totally free from work, etc. But he said at some point of time, the work has to be completely given up. Then only you are fit for the higher truth or knowledge or ultimate mukti. So he very strongly advocated this path, and that is how he took it forward. It was Swami Vivekananda who came and you gave a kind of a new flavor, a slightly different orientation, a different idea to this basic concept of Shankaracharya that we shall take up a little later. Now, assuming that most of us, most of the people in this world are in the path of pravritti, participation, is it possible to bring in an element of spirituality in such a world? And what is the best way of doing it? So, as we discussed in the beginning itself, it's necessary to accept for anyone to bring spirituality into work, the basic idea that there is a higher dimension to life, and this alone can give us that kind of an ultimate peace, happiness, satisfaction, joy, everything. All this has been clearly proved. If you just look at the world, from the richest of people, multimillionaires, billionaires, many others, they also have unending problems, so many issues, so many difficulties. Everything, every moment, something or other is happening. So whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether you are educated or uneducated, you are a man or woman, anything, ultimately everyone has, again and again, they have seen and has been proved any number of times, this earthly existence can give you only certain amount of maybe the needs for your daily life, etc., etc. But all these, they all come with a rider, come with a qualification, come with something, so that you really can't go beyond a certain point. However rich or poor you might be, this does not make a difference. Ultimately, one can think too deeply, would clearly accept that one has to go beyond this, then only it's possible to solve all the problems of life and go to something superior. So at the same time, because the way we are engaged, the way we participate and so on, it is not possible to give up all that. One might know, one might understand intellectually, but then one is in such a situation, you have to be heavily engaged all the time. If work brings along with it so many other problems, that's why Shankaracharya is emphatic at one point of time. Unless you are completely free from work, you can never realize that oneness or go to the ultimate idea of freedom. So work we all know, because the moment you start working, when you are sitting quiet, you are a saint. The moment you start participating, then all the angularities, everything comes out in interpersonal dealings, relationship. It may be even an ashrama, it may be monastery, it may be anything. All that definitely throw up all these issues. So more so for people who largely have to work for other personal needs, family, income, these, that, with so many other ambitions and desires for post, promotion, wealth, and so on. So how is it possible? What can be done? So there are 2-3 ideas which are very common, which can be attempted. One is, first and foremost, as I said again and again, I would emphasize, is the idea, are you convinced that there is a higher or a transcendental aspect to life? If that is not accepted, there is no point in discussing this at all, because the very idea of spirituality means Because the spirituality itself means a transcendental reality, transcendental experience, transcendental life, etc., etc. So the very idea of trying to bring spirituality into work means we accept that idea, and that is a clear place in our life. If that be so, one of the beautiful ideas one can experiment is, as it is clearly given in the Gita, Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phale heturbhu mate sangostu akarmani. So Sri Krishna, where the doctrine of Nishkam Karma is so beautifully expounded. So he says, you have the right to work. Karmani eva adhikara te. You have the right to work. Ma phaleshu kadachan. But don't aspire for the results that way. You have to work. We have to work certainly. No one can really escape. In fact, he clearly says, Nahi kasti chanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. Karyate havasya karma sarvam prakriti pune. We are all moved around by Prakriti. Anyone who is born cannot be free from work even for a second, he says. We are so much conditioned to work in our very nature, in our very creation. So no one can simply say that I cannot. Because in all this, the Gita talks about every yoga. But we're discussing the Karma Yoga. He clearly says that simply you cannot say that you may not be active, but then you will, such a person, see, physically one might abstain oneself from any participation in activity, but mentally you are constantly engaged. He says such a person is a mithachari, he says. Because you cannot say, you are not physically acting, but you're constantly, your mind is running in 1,000 directions and you are participating. So he says, that is not that's not the right way, and you are really cheating. You are a hypocrite. He clearly calls. So he says, even those they were supposed to be evolved, for them also, because when the Prakriti makes you, Prakriti myanti bhutani nigraha kinkarishati. When Prakriti makes you participate, so sadasam cheshte swasya Prakriti jnanavanapi. Even those who are the men of knowledge, they may try. However, they may try, because Prakriti myanti bhutani, when the Prakriti makes you act, participate, you can say that, no, you cannot say that I will not do. Your very bones, your very nature. So that being so, so what he says, how does it can be solved? He says, you accept that you have to work. Not only the right to work, you'll be forced to work, you will be working. But can you work in such a way that you are not completely possessed by the idea of the result or enjoying the fruits of work? Of course, this is a very important slogan, and quite often those who are not very familiar, they are baffled. How is it possible? How can anyone work without thinking of the fruits? We have to really, without that, where is the motive for work and all that? What Sri Krishna says is, you work very hard, no doubt, with all good intentions. But don't say that it should happen this way only, or all the results should go to me only. That is the idea about it. He said, because every work would produce its results, obviously. Whether you want it or not, every action, every participation, every involvement, every attempt would produce a result. You cannot do anything without any result. But such a result, if you think that it should be this way only, then you will be in a terrible misery. And also trying to appropriate all the results for oneself. These are the two things he probably says we should avoid. For example, so much was done from morning, from days together, Pranaji, all the other committee members, all of you, have been doing all that. Everything is fixed. So we had gone, both of us, gone somewhere, some park. Supposing we had got stuck in a traffic jam for 1 hour, we were not able to come at all. What would you do? We can make all the effort. But then, no, if that little detachment is there, we will do everything. But so, this will be a great savior in our existential world. we do so many things, we undertake so many tasks, so many assignments, so many other things. Ultimately, if you always, one hand, so this Gita, that's why he clearly says, Mate sangostu akarmani. Don't think that, oh, I will not work. No, don't be attached to the idea of non-action. You have to perform. You have to perform intensely, participate. But remember that it can always end differently. Our idea to start with, this is how it should be, with good intention, with all that you perform. But constantly don't like it should happen this way. I should get this. I must get this reward. I must get the promotion. I must get the wealth. Mind should increase. If you do without that, then you will become a little more detached. Because ultimately, what really binds us, what really leads to all sorrow, suffering, and all that is because we are terribly attached. Work brings more and more attachment. Oh, I did this. You know how I developed it? You know how I did this? How I planned this design? Or you know how I discussed with the architect? I told them to put the picture, You know who told this? So like that, everything we get so attached. If you think that, yes, we have to participate, but same time, we should not think that everything would go only this way. If that awareness is there, so this one idea, Gita gives very beautifully. So this might help us to really bring an element of spirituality into work, because we are working very hard, we are making every possible effort, but same time we are aware that this might lead somewhere else also. I will not be how people become completely broken, completely shattered, they can't do anything. But then if you have the sense of detachment, and if you work that way, that would be one idea of bringing spirituality into work. But then, as the next step, even if you want to go a little deeper, when you develop that kind of a little detachment, then Sri Krishna goes to say another idea in Gita itself. He says, Et karoshi yadasnashi yajjosi dadasyat et tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So, when you do this kind of work without, being completely attached, when you know that, yes, I will work very hard, I'll put in all the best effort, yet at the same time, I will not be completely tied down to this idea of the phala or the results going my way or as I dictate, as I imagine, because quite often it might be good also if it goes the other way. We do not know. We think that if it doesn't end this way, it is bad. No, probably quite often it might be that some people, so many youngsters, come to Delhi, or Delhi, probably 2 or 3 lakhs people, 300,000 people, they come to attempt civil service exams. There are a lot of coaching institutes are there. So after some time, twice, thrice, 3 attempts, oh Maharaj, I put so much effort, I studied so hard, I didn't make it, what to do, so depressed. So no, why do you think like that? Probably you are meant for something better. Civil service is not your cup of tea. Not every civil servant is extremely happy or who has done extremely well. It's a very tough job. Particularly the way some of the governments function and all that may be extremely tough and difficult. Why don't you take it that way? There are so many positive sides from this, because you learn how to study hard, how to concentrate, how to study for 8 hours, 10 hours in a day, how to keep other distractions away, because in all these preparations, you acquired all this. This might help you elsewhere. Why don't you take such a view? So if you think that no, it has not happened, then you're completely lost, shattered, then life is gone. So this idea of Sri Krishna, not aspiring for appropriation of the fruits to oneself, or wishing that they should end in a particular way only. So that is one beginning. And as a next step, as he says, then obviously, when you try to do it in that way, there's always an idea. Supposing there is some other idea to back it up, it might become a little easier. Quite often, I put all the effort, I do everything. Why should I not have? So all those questions would come. Maybe that's why he gives this idea. Et karoshi yadasnashi yadjosi dadasyat et tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. He says, whatever whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, your tyaga, your tapasya, even the charity that you, everything you offer unto me. It can be Krishna, it can be Rama, it can be Christ, it can be Allah, it can be anything. So it's not, because he is saying, you offer unto me. Sri Krishna, there are devotees of, it can be, one can be any devotee of any god or goddess. So the idea is, this gives another dimension to that. You are working hard, you are trying to work with a sense of detachment, trying not to appropriate all the fruits of work to yourself. But then, how do we really do it? Because I feel that, but then you bring this element, there is a superior power guiding my destiny, taking care of me. We're all here because of that. So if you understand that way, then no, I am doing it only as an agent, as a representative of the Lord or God. This, of course, it's a kind of bhakti yoga combined with karma yoga, yoga of karma. So there, you try, whatever you try to do, you always try to offer constantly. So you know that the good or bad, everything is offered unto the Lord. It is not mine. So it's easier to participate or easier to assume this idea of not appropriating everything to oneself, because now you have brought in the element of the Lord or a superior power in your life. And then as a way of offering everything to the Lord, you are able to participate and do this idea of, detached work. Because ultimately the word yoga itself means union with something superior, union with the ultimate, union with truth, union with God. All that. Karma yoga is through the path of karma, achieving the highest kind of union or linkage with the supreme reality. So this idea of detachment and nishkama, without the desire for fruits, that is the central idea or the foundation of this idea of karma. So the work is not mere work only for existential needs, for fulfillment of desires, etc. That is slowly getting, transformed into what is called karma yoga, or a higher form of work, whereby the work itself can slowly lead to something higher. Because, see, one of the main reasons for the dissatisfaction, loss of peace, and so many other problems that we face is, inwardly, ultimately, in every individual, there is a desire for a higher fulfillment, experience of a higher reality. There is something deep inborn within each one of us. The only thing is, one has to, a majority perhaps do not really recognize it, they don't even get an inkling of it, but the moment electrical awakening, that seems to possess us, and that is what leads us to seek these kind of elements in our activities or in our participation. So this karma yoga can be, the work can slowly get transformed into what is called this karma yoga, where there is less and less of the selfishness, less and less of the self-centeredness, less and less of the idea of taking everything for oneself, where you work for some other higher purpose, all that. So this can be done with this idea of offering everything unto the Lord, etc. You do everything because while doing, one is not even perhaps so much aware of it, because you are busy, totally involved in whatever you are doing, whatever you are participating. But then, having done that, if we constantly remember to offer, then probably that gives us even a better or more scope to participate this idea of not appropriating fruits to oneself and working with more and more a spirit of detachment, being detached. Then we are progressing further. There is even a still higher idea that's also, as we go further, it's even possible to participate that way. That is what is given in that Shiva Manasa Puja Stotra. There it says, Atmatvam Girija Mati Sachara Prana Shariram Griham Pujate Vishiyopa Bhogarajana Nidra Samadhi Sthiti Sanchara Padayo Pradakshinavadi Stotrani Sarvagiro Yadyat Karma Karomi Tadadakilam Shambho Tavaradam. There's a beautiful Shiva Manasa Puja where somebody is worshipping Shiva mentally. He says, Atmatmam, you are my innermost being, Shiva. Girija Mati, Parvati, Girija is Mati. Prana, Shariram, Griham. All these your sacharas are all my prana. So my body is your temple. Then whatever I enjoy, all my bhoga, etc., they are all the items of your worship, samagris for your worship. Nidra samadhi. Nidra, when I go to sleep, it is samadhi. There is nothing but that. And then wherever I go, wherever my feet takes me, sanchara padayo pradaksha. I am only doing your own pradakshina, circumambulation. Yadyat karomi kadad. Whatever I do, shambho tavaradhanam, they are only your aradhana, only I am doing. So whereas in that other shloka, you have to do everything and then we are offering. Here, every moment of one's life, one might be doing, one might be a big industry, one might be a chartered accountant, one might be a doctor, one might be something else, one might be a monk, one might be a nun, anything one might be. But at every point of time, whatever you do, he has covered practically all the dimensions of one's daily life or existence. Our getting up, our sleep, our participation, our eating, our bhoga, sleep, everything he says, everything is only your aradhana. That means such a person is constantly aware of a higher presence or a higher reality and works with that idea that every moment, whatever I do, I am only constantly your own aradhana, your own puja, your own worship only I am doing. I am not doing something else. So this is even a more refined or even a higher idea of bringing spirituality into work or into participation. So probably on those lines, not exactly using the same words, a little differently only. As we talked about, Shankara clearly said that work has to stop at a certain stage of life, and then only through jnana nishtha, by resorting to this vichara, mahavakyas, etc., then only you can reach the highest goal of life, namely jnana, because work itself means duality. Duality itself is contradicting oneness or consciousness. So if you want to realize that oneness, if that is the goal of life, you have to keep away from all that. So here only Swami Vivekananda stepped in. He saw that this modern mind, this world, there is so much of need for participation. Everybody is working constantly. Even by his time it started, today, he will be simply amazed if he sees the way people are functioning. So more and more there is involvement, more and more there is participation. That's why even when he set up an organization, largely with monastics, but he made sure they are in the cities, in the marketplace, in the place where there is intense activity. So it's clearly gave a new orientation, a new outlook to life itself. So what he said was, see, if the highest idea of the Advaita is not only when the consciousness, the highest consciousness is experienced, every activity, because ultimately, if Shankara says, if there is only oneness, if there is only one truth, if there is only one, then that is to be experienced not only in terms of the highest revelation of consciousness, also as in the expression of every activity. Every activity, everything that is revealed, everything that is shown, everything that is experienced, but all should all be only a revelation of that highest reality. Because if you say that there is only one reality, there is nothing else, then what is all this that one might, Shankara used to call it largely all as Maya, they are all to be completely negated and completely be got rid of. But Swamiji gave a positive drip to the whole thing, saying that you don't have to discard them away as totally non-essential or absolutely unnecessary, or rather a hindrance. Rather, you take each and everything as a wonderful expression of that highest reality. Then he said, it's possible to participate. So that's why he said, one has to work intensely. That's why in this organization also, he said before the Ramakrishna mission, the twin ideas, Atmanu Mokshartam Jagat Hitaya. He knew that everybody, because that is the goal of life. Long ago, it was, thousands of years ago, it was determined that through great lives, through people who lived, who participated, who experienced that, highest goal of life is total, complete freedom or mukti. But the path lay through such intense activity or participation. That's why he said that the welfare of the world, intense participation is necessary, is absolutely necessary, but that should ultimately lead to the highest. So he said, the only thing was that where he kind of slightly differed from what Shankara was trying to say was, Shankara clearly said at some point of time, work has to be completely given up. But Swamiji said that one need not make any specific effort to give it up. Supposing you, why he said, why this is necessary, why this participation is necessary, what all we do, if all that we do, all that we participate, if all can be done with some one idea or other, that will lead to an internal purification, a refinement. More and more our selfishness would go away, our desires would go away. More and more we feel that it is necessary to work for others, do something for others, rather than oneself. That's why you say when great billionaires, great millionaires, many others, they set up foundations. They feel the necessary. It's no longer necessary for me to keep on acquiring wealth. It's possible to do something better for the society. Everywhere, all over the world, these concepts are becoming very popular. But so long ago, Swamiji said that if you work with the idea, in fact, he says, even a person who shines shoes, if he does it with the right attitude, he is also practicing Advaita. That's also an expression of the Advaita of the highest order, what he clearly said. So, wherever one might be, that's why he says, from the marketplace, from the farmers who are plowing the fields, whatever one might do, it's possible. Every activity can be converted into something of such supremely spiritual nature, because that is our real nature, and that is how we are structured, that's how we are made, that's how we are born. But then you have to work very hard, remembering this highest idea, and try to work with a sense of absolutely unselfishness in a form of Nishkam Karma. Then that is called Karma Yoga. When you participate that way, in that all these ideas come, this Gita's idea, the Karmanyavadikar's idea, the Nekkaroshidarshan's idea, and also Shivaman's Puja idea. One or other attitude, if you start with, then what happens as you go forward in life, through more and more that kind of intense participation, you become more and more purified. Then ultimately, it's possible to realize one's true nature and experience that supreme peace or that complete satisfaction, contentment, so on. All that is possible through such a kind of involvement provided. So one need not run away, one need not give away, one can participate, one can do everything. But the real secret lies in the way we do it. It's not so much what we do, rather how we do it. The way we do it is so important. But it's in such a way, it's possible through work to experience something. So, the idea is not just bringing spirituality and kind of grafting it into work. Work itself should slowly evolve as a spiritual discipline. Work itself should become a yoga. Karma should become a karma yoga. Otherwise, whatever one might do should not bring that kind of a satisfaction. It will not give you that kind of uplift. So ultimately, without even giving it any name, every individual wants peace, happiness, satisfaction. All that is possible only if we orient our work itself differently. When work itself becomes a spiritual discipline, wherever one might be, whatever one might be doing, then only it is possible to experience the higher dimensions of life. And that is how work and spirituality can be combined. It cannot be in our work, have a little bit of spirituality as a flavor sprinkled somewhere. That will not work. That will not take us anywhere. It's not possible to combine that way. So whatever we do, basically when we understand about the higher dimension of life, and with that idea, we start it, slowly, it might not be there to start with, but ultimately, whatever we do, wherever one might be, Work has to be converted into a spiritual discipline itself so that the higher dimension of life can be experienced. So I will end with a very, very beautiful anecdote about one of our own Swamis. He was he came to join the monastery long ago. Later on he got the name Swami Muktananda. He was called Van Bihari Maharaj. So he came to join the Belur Math. He was young. He was maybe hardly had done his school final or even less than that. Those days, qualification was not so much important. So Mahapurush Maharaj, Shivananda Ji was there at the time. So he probably gave him Diksha, etc. He told him, you go to Benares and you serve there. Through that you will get everything. So he came. At that time, today this hospital is much more developed. It was called, in fact, people come to Benares to die virtually. So there was a hospital, it has completed more than 100 years now. Very primitive, minimum facilities. That's how it was. For many number of years it was like that. Even now it's not a super specialty. So he came, he had no knowledge of medicine or anything, what work they would give. They gave him a small table and a stool to sit, and then some scissors and some bandage material and medicines. They said, when the patients come, you clean their wounds, you dress. So he started. His guru has said, and from morning 8 o'clock till practically 3, standing, day after day after day he would do. And at 3 o'clock he would come. There was no hot case, this is somewhere they would have kept his prasada. He would take and rest. Years it went on, probably 30 years, 40 years, day after day. Hardly he would go anywhere, not even to the Vishwanath temple, which is very famous in Benares. But over the years, a simple act, cleaning, dressing, bandaging the wounds, is all he did. But because of the attitude, he acquired such a deft touch. People would come from a long distance to be dressed by him. He was not a surgeon, he was not a doctor, he won't prescribe medicines for any illness. But he would dress, they know if he does, they'll be cured. People used to tell, the Achal Vishwanath is there, the Vishwanath is not moving, which is there. The Sachal Vishwanath, one who is moving, is here in the hospital. He became so famous. So because he did it for so many years standing, he developed very severe rheumatism. His knees became so swollen, could hardly stand. But he refused to take rest. He would come, drag himself. Then he could not walk at all. He came by wheelchair. Then somehow they'll make him stand. Then he will do it. Then it was impossible to stand even for a minute. Then only he finally took rest from work. At that time I saw him. He was in his room. The glow that would emanate from his face. And you would know that what this person has done and how through work, what he has achieved. So it is not really important what we do. One might be a CEO, one might be an executive, one might be a business magnate, or this or that, or maybe a very ordinary, humble person. Still, the attitude, why we are doing, what you want to achieve through work, what's your goal of life? Have you recognized a different dimension? All that would qualitatively change the way we work and ultimately convert work itself into a spiritual discipline. That is how then the Chitta Shuddhi, or the purification of the inner self, would start happening. And then only you'll be able to experience even higher dimensions of life and ultimately reach what is the summum bonum of life, or what is the really desired goal of every individual, namely complete liberation or total freedom. Thank you. Now, if you want, you can ask questions. I was given 50 minutes. Yes. Yes.
Swami Shantatmananda inspired by Swami Vivekananda's character building education. And he started a program in the New Delhi Center and traveled around India for values education. Swami, would you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, let them finish the questions, then I will tell them what is that. Yes.
I was going to ask you the question about what you mentioned. Temporary earlier said that at some point the work has to stop and needs to go into knowledge. So did he mean that this should happen in the context of Vaidika karma and upasana? Did he also mean that all transaction of
Yeah. Yes. See, the idea of philanthropic work, altruistic work itself is a much later concept, because in the ancient times, people in a very natural, spontaneous way, they would help others. For example, if people come during the food time, whosoever comes would be fed. So there was not so much need for a specific, that kind of a philanthropic activity or anything. So largely what you were saying, is at some point of time, one has to do the scripture ordained Vaidika karmas. Then at some point of time, to completely stop them, take to Jnana Nishtha, and then only you will get the highest truth or the highest knowledge. So, because the situation had changed by the time Swamiji came to the scene, he saw there is so much of need for this kind of philanthropic work. And he also saw that how this can really purify oneself, how one can. I gave you a very real life example, how it is possible. Then that's why he brought in the idea, work itself should automatically lead to worklessness. Naishkarmya should be spontaneous, should not be a specific result of an effort to move away from work. The intensity of work, the ultimate purification. He says, when that purification happens, the Atman or the self will be self-revealing. It will, by its own extraordinary light, it will shine. So one need not make an effort to give up karma at this stage. This was Swamiji's emphasis. Yes, yeah, yes, Prakash.
Then the first period is spent learning. The second period is where a lot of the work happens. Third period is gradual action. And fourth is basic design. So this kind of overlays on top of the things that you were talking also, how to progress from participation to.
So you see, that is what the 4 ashramas which were there, namely Brahmacharya, Garhastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So that is for the largely the pravritti margis, those who go for this participatory mode. So obviously learning first as a student, and then as the dharma it was, you become a householder, then you participate. So at one point of time, that's what, if one is reflective, if one has this ability, as is always said, that viveka and vichara, the discrimination, that after some time automatically, so people used to withdraw in the ancient times. So because of the absence of that kind of a spiritual orientation in our life, so we keep on doing it till the end. We never want to give up. We never want to go to the next stage. But if you are driven by a spiritual idea, even for a young age, even if you don't take it to nivritti, from pravritti itself, slowly at one point of time, one would say, what am I doing? I've done enough. So let me give up. Let me concentrate more on something higher. Let me do more of sadhana. I have participated enough. So that the world weariness is very, very important. That is where spiritual life would really begin. If you are completely engrossed, deeply fascinated by the world all the time, how can we think of going further? Some point is enough, no more, had enough. Let me withdraw completely. Let me devote all my time. Then one has to intensify the efforts in terms of time, in terms of this thing made, then it's possible. So each person has to determine for oneself. Then there is no fixed period for everything. The earlier you feel the urge, the more you would move in that direction and move away from samsara. That way.
In terms of what we think and we want to offer everything to God, this participant program has some outcomes for every action that are kind of the benchmark or something that is looked up as the outcome that it should be. And maybe there is a parallel in the Vedic yajnas where a yajna is done with a certain outcome in mind, and then sometimes the world looking back at you might project that if you don't achieve it, then you look at it like your engagement was not worth everything that you have done. In an aspect like that, is there anything that can look up to help?
Yeah, you see, the point is, most of our sufferings is because what others think of us, What X says, what Y says, what Z says, that's constantly driving us mad. So, if you bring such an element, whatever it is I'm going to offer to the Lord. Oh Lord, this is a failure, you take it, it's your job. I did my best, but this is all possible. I'm offering to you. See, I think in the Sri Ramakrishna somewhere it says, this God himself who has put poison in the serpent. So it's all, everything is his. So once you develop such an attitude, you're not bothered about it. That is what would save you really. Then you would say, no, it's okay. X, Y, Z might say, but I know I have done my best. I have offered it to God. So there it ends. Praise also is. Praise all I will take. Only blame I will offer. That cannot be. Everything if you offer, you are absolutely safe. You don't mind at all. You just move on. That's what would bring peace and harmony in your life. Otherwise, we are terribly bothered by what they say, what happens. I will not get the grades. I will not get the right CV, no recommendations and things like that. So you are not, that's the only way to really get rid of all that. Our others' estimation of, in fact, all that's only relative, is it not? Quite often, you might have done really well also. Because someone doesn't like it, he may evaluate it very poorly. That's even a much worse situation. What you would do there? Here at least, if it is really poor, even by your own estimates, there can be a sense of remorse in you. You have done exceedingly well. But because someone doesn't like you, he deliberately evaluates it poorly. What would you do? So if you give everything, yes, it's yours. I've done my job. You do whatever you want. Then you are absolutely free and you can sleep peacefully. Yes, please.
And when it is time, the next level is coming. What's the way to do?
No, you see, actually, mentally, once you have accepted this idea of offering to the Lord, so you keep on offering always. Whenever anything happens, whenever anything you do, whenever you do, so more and more you do it, more and more you become established in that practice. That will become a great spiritual discipline by itself, constantly offering. So quite often we will forget, we will not remember. Oh, I have completely forgotten. Then what happens? You establish a constant link. Not only that, there are so many other things, because there's no time to discuss all that. See, that will bring you more and more remembrance of the Lord. That will become some kind of a meditation. You may not sit and close your eyes and meditate, But you're constantly thinking, oh, I have done this, I have to offer. I have to offer it to Sri Krishna, I have to offer it to Rama, I have to offer it to Thakur, I have to offer it to Swamiji. So, it becomes a kind of a remembrance, a meditation also. Because you are constantly thinking about offering. So that would help them. So it's not that there is no formula, you simply offer. In your own way, whichever way you feel is convenient, you constantly keep offering that way. Yes.
Sometimes we use the meditation time for and found out that the beneficiaries of that, the fruits of that effort are getting family and others. And sometimes we see that is going into the middle of it. Maybe they will give some article, someone in article, and they are enjoying a bounty. And then you suddenly withdraw yourself and you think like, oh, this whole thing is not good. And then you go very withdrawal path and you go to the path. But you don't able to follow that path because of your group and you come back. And that becomes a very difficult to manage.
Yeah, see, any knee-jerk reaction is not good. Anything happens, one has to be always, it's not good to react and try to switch sides like that. See, evolution is in spiritual life. The most important thing is the ability to wait patiently. You need oceans of patience if you want to progress in spiritual life. So whatever might happen, people might do. So see, if you are offering to God, you don't worry. It's God who is making that kind of a distribution. What is there for me? I have done my job. I have done my best. I have offered it to you. Now you distribute. See, even for the biggest robbers, bank robberies, this, that, it's also happening under God's eyes only, is it not? If you believe the whole world is God's, do you think that robbery, bank robberies is happening without God's knowledge? Everything is happening. So good, bad, they're all. See, long ago, thousands of years ago, what is that Devasura Yuddha? The fight between demons and gods. It's all that only. Somewhere robbery is happening, somebody is stealing, somebody every now and then you'll find someone in India nowadays is happening more. Someone going in the street, someone takes a knife and stabs several times in broad daylight and kills and all that. Is not God watching? Does not God know? So if you look everything only from an existential point of view, it's very difficult to find an answer. When you think there is a higher dimension to all that, because nothing is worth considering at all that way. Then you will find that it's okay. Someone enjoy, let it be so. What does it say? As long as what is given to me, I do it to the best of my ability, and I offer the fruits. It's up to God to distribute. Let him distribute his will, let him give more to some, let him bless to someone, let people misuse it, let people wrongly use it. What does it matter to me? It is not mine. Only when I claim it is mine, oh, I have done it, my work should not be used this way. No, I have done and given it to the Lord. It's up to him to distribute. Then you are. I think we are trading into the bhakti already. Tomorrow morning's topic, half of it is getting covered. So it's possible that way. Anybody else? Are we through with the questions? Yes. So our Pranaji wanted to. Actually, when I came to Delhi some 16 years back, I found probably there are 1 crore school students, 1 crore, 10 million. I found that they are not being given the real education. There are many schools which charge 100,000 as fees per month, even more. Such schools are there. All kinds of schools are totally government schools with no board, no electricity, no teacher. Starting from that up to the highest level where they charge 100,000, 150,000 per month fees also. That schools are also there. But largely everyone was only teaching academics. Academics, how to get marks, how to get this admission, that, nothing else. So, but I always felt that Swamiji had a very different definition of education, what education is, what children should be given. So we started working on those lines. And slowly, for the last almost 11 years or so, we have been working. So we have developed a program called the Awakened Citizen Program, which is run in middle schools. More than 6,000 schools from Kashmir to Kanyakumari are enrolled into the program. And more than 60,000 teachers have been trained. And more than 1.2 million students have been touched by this program. So the idea is we are giving them a new orientation to education. A team of 85 people are working in this project. About 40 of them are total volunteers. They are doctorate, double masters, and that kind of qualified people. They are volunteers. And we have also other paid staff. Of course, we can't pay them high salary. We pay them just minimum salaries only. So we have posted them all over India. So we train teachers. Teachers go and implement the program. Then our resource persons go and visit how the program is being done. So I've captured all the reactions through videos, what the students feel, what the teachers feel. It has grown so big, so we thought it was no longer possible to handle it from Delhi. So we have built a new center in Gurugram, which is in Haryana, where there will be ashram activities like classes, puja, etc. But the focus, the main activity will be this type of value orientation. Now, after middle school, seeing its demand, we have recently developed a program for primary school students, classes 1 to 5. So that is also being now rolled out. So we are also doing programs for housewives, senior citizens, parents. So all that is happening. And apart from that, we are putting up a separate facility in Rishikesh, which is it will be a beautiful place where there will be scope for contemplation, retreats, all that will happen. So kind of a new type of center, new type of activities we have started. Of course, our Mahinder knows about this value education. He also supports it. Yes, thank you.